Okay, we got action. Okay, you're here. Let's see who else can join in. David, can you hear me?
I can hear loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. I still got to get my Gemara somehow turned in over here.
You know, worst comes to worst, people have their own Gemaras.
I know, but Akiva wants the Gemara on, so I got to follow instructions.
Stick.
What?
What does I? Okay. Okay, I think we're getting on there. I think we're getting places. Let me see if Akiva's on. Okay, I think we're going to be good. So let's see which we can find this pasuk over here. Okay, now I just have to see if I can make sure this is recording. Okay, I think we're good.
I'm staying on mute.
Okay. I'll have to wait till Loyal starts joining in.
No, Yossi.
Oh, I hear you, Akiva, but I don't see you.
Yeah, because I'm on watching the Gemara page.
Uh-huh.
So, but if you want to see me, you can see me here.
Where can I?
Did you see me?
No,
you don't see me.
you just come up with your name comes up.
Oh, you know why? Because I stopped the video. I'm not ready. Well, let me put my makeup on. Hold on. There we go. Good to there you go.
Now we're talking.
Okay.
I see. It is recording. I did click record to the cloud. I hope it is.
Yeah, of course it is. We recorded the other one. We have to upload, and David hasn't seen the one from Friday. You recorded Fridays also, didn't you?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. It says it's recording, which means that you're recording it. So everybody, this way, everybody knows that they're being recorded. You understand?
You mean this is like to improve quality of service? We record everything.
Yeah. No, this is. I guess legally they have to know that they're being recorded.
Uh-huh.
So we're starting in 5 minutes. I want to suggest everybody has to make sure that their phone is on mute. Last time on Friday, I was hearing people cough and sneeze and move around. It was 6 a.m, right?
Yeah, but
See,
that gives it a realistic feel, you know?
Yeah. No, the blowing of the nose, the sipping of the cup. That was one of Dave Zolty's remarks when he tuned into the shiur, is that he was able to hear you sip the coffee. So I responded.
Did he smell the aroma?
No, I told him, right? Oh,
Hey, Shlomi, how did you get out of Pesach cleaning?
I just had to come say hello.
Oh, okay.
That was my excuse. I get the luck, everybody.
Good luck.
Good to
See, how was?
Oh, Victor. I think Victor's coming on.
Yeah, it takes a second for the audio to kick in.
All right, Yossi.
Oh, good.
Oh.
How you doing?
Oh.
There he is.
I never had such a Shabbos of peace and quiet in my life.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't sing a Gans davening, a Yom Tov davening?
Yeah, but it was just, I had full control over how noisy it was.
You know that, but the davening, Yossi, to me, I haven't davened b'avodah like this since we were at the oil.
Yossi, how are you doing? Is your 2 cameras going?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's the camera built into the computer, and then it's the same green camera that we use for the text.
Oh, wow.
I know. So the only thing that we're missing still is to be able to add who's giving the shiur and liluy nishmas who. The goal is to learn daf. My goal is to learn daf. You don't need a Gemara anymore. All you need is a phone.
I actually like the paper. Personally.
Yeah, what, the whole, no, 100%. Obviously, you want to be able to hold the paper, but when you're traveling, you're on the road, to schlep a Gemara is very difficult for many people, right?
Yeah.
And it also just, it's a start. There's some people, Shlomo, who haven't gotten yet to buy a Gemara. You got it?
No. We're on the test mode. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to say I get the Vaykhel, everybody.
Yvach, thank you. Happy
It's
cleaning.
hard stuff.
It's a hard daf today.
Oh, I obviously I didn't learn it well because I didn't find it that hard.
So where are we starting? We're backing up to
I get the Vaykhel. See you guys tomorrow morning.
Yvach.
Bye. 8 o'clock after Nate's. Okay.
We're starting from Gufa, the second line from the top on Tesvav Amarav.
all right.
Okay. Are we ready to start?
Yeah, if you're up to it.
Okay. So we have to wait till 10:30. Okay, it's 1 minute away. So to begin, really, this whole Gemara that we're learning today is a diversion, because we were the way we got into this, and we're totally on a tangent that has nothing to do with Shabbos, and it's a complicated Gemara that's really not even relevant to Gemara Shabbos. It all started because it said that we learned that you're not allowed to read La'ar on Shabbos because you might adjust the wick, and the Mishnah tells us this is one of the 18 gzeiros that were made in the attic that day. And because of that, the Gemara decided that it wants to flush out all the different halachas that were discussed in the attic. So we're really going through sugyas all over the place that are not relevant to Shabbos, but once we're talking about this what was it called? It was called a junket. They had a junket in this attic. They had a big G7 meeting. Oh, 1 second, let's let somebody in over here. Mechi's coming. So there was a big G7 meeting, and during that meeting, they discussed all these halachas, and these are the halachas that we're going through. So the Gemara says as follows: Gufa, Amar Buddha Mashmul, Yud Ches Gozru. There were 18 gzeiros that were nigzar, Uva Yid Ches Nechlaku. And in fact, there was a dispute. There was a machlokes about the halacha about these 18 things. In fact, the more about Tanya Hushvu, we had a brisa that said they all agreed. There was no machlokes, there was no dispute. This was a 2-day summit. On the first day, they did not agree about it. On the second day of the summit, Hushvu, that's when they all agreed. So that's simple. The next part is a little bit more complicated. Gufa, Amar Reb Huna said, the Gimel Mekayim is Nechlaku Shammai V'Hil. Shammai and Hill themselves only argued in 3 places. And now the Gemara is going to go through the first machlokes that there was between Shammai and Hill, and it's a little bit complicated, so I just want to start with a little bit of a hatam. The first thing I want to start with is the mitzvah of challah. We know there's a mitzvah of afrashas challah, and the Torah says in Bamidbar, it says, Reishis arisai seichem, the first of your dough, challah, tarimu, truma, you should separate as truma. So we learn from here that when you prepare a dough, which is a certain size, minimum size, you have to be mafresh challah. And the shaila that we're discussing is how big is that minimum size. I think nowadays we say it's 5 pounds of flour is what mandates to be mafresh challah. But that's what this machlokes was about. It was a 4 machlokes. Now, in order to understand what the machlokes is as follows. What is it called? What is it called a dough? What is called your dough? Reishis arisai seichem, some of your dough. So everybody agrees, all the Tanaim agree, that what it means is whatever you consider a dough, whatever amount was typically considered a dough in the times of the Midbar, that size dough is mechayiv you with challah. So how do we know what's the size dough that would be considered a typical dough in the Midbar? It was based on
Yossi, you got to let Mati in. Sorry. Yossi, sorry to interrupt. You got to let Mati in.
I did.
Mati, are you in? Where is he? Yeah, he's in. Okay, there he is.
Yeah,
that's what happens. If you come late, that's it. You're not going to be let in.
No, everybody gets let in. Everybody gets let in. Okay. Right. So the question is what determines what a dough is? So what the Tanaim agree is that we look at what was the amount of dough or mon that people received. It said that each person got the amount of an oimer, and the Torah says at the end of Parshas Amon, it says va'oimer asira sa'efahi. So the clue that we have is the amount of dough that is considered a dough from those times in the Midbar was an oimer, which is an asira sa'efah. So that's the information that we have. And now we have to use math to figure out how big that is. So I want to introduce you to an interesting thing. The article brings it down, but it's a Mishnah Berurah, and I wrote it down over here. It's one of my favorite tricks. It's called Ke Askelav Yegudu, and this is it's almost a comprehensive list of all of the ratios between the different measurements that exist in the Torah.
Yossi, I was trying to remember what it was.
Well, what was?
That. You told us months ago, and I was trying to remember what your trick was. I couldn't remember.
Okay, so I'll go through it. Chaf is core. A core, excuse me. A core is yud ephah. So one core is 10 ephah. An ephah is gimel saw. A saw is vav kav. A kav is dalad lug, and a lug is vav beitzim. So the top line refers to the different measurements, and the lower line refers to the relationship between each of the measurements. So a lug is 6 eggs, a kav is 4 lugs. So just to give you some basic information is, a kav is 4 lugs. Sometimes Chazal refers to a lug as a roiva, a quarter, because a lug is a quarter of a kav. So a lug has a different name, roiva, but it's the same thing, it's a quarter of a kav. A kav is going to be 24 eggs. Because 6 times 4 is 24. So a kav is 24 eggs. That's an important piece of information. Okay, we just let somebody else in. Okay, so now that we got that clear, I want to get back to the ephah. We said an oimer is an asira sa'ephah. So if an oimer is an asira sa'ephah, let's figure out how many eggs are in an Assyria Ephah. So an Ephah, if you multiply 6 times 4 times 6 times 3, you should get, I believe you get 243. All right, let me actually do it on my calculator here. So I'm going to do 6 times 4 times 6 times 3 is 432. I'm sorry. So there's 432 eggs in an ephah. Does that make sense? Does anybody follow with that? Because if I want to know how many eggs are in an ephah, I have to multiply 6 eggs times 4 times 6 times 3, and that tells me how many eggs are in an ephah. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's what Art Scroll says on the next page.
So Archibald says it as well, but I want to get the math into our heads. Okay, so now that we have that, if I want to take a tenth of an ephah, it's very simple. 432 divided by 10 is 43.2. So 43.2 eggs would be what is considered an Assyria ephah. And that would be very simple to understand. What complicated it is that the shiur, for some reason, and I want to take the guy who made this change out back and beat him up, is one day someone at some point decided that all of these shiurim, we should add a fifth to them. So the eggs, each egg is a fifth bigger, and each core is a fifth bigger, because everything's a fifth bigger. Now, he was just doing it. Whoever changed those shiurim, it wasn't for any halachic purpose. For some commercial purpose, they changed it. So when people were talking about a beya or a lug or a kav or a sar, an if or a kur, they were now talking about a bigger shiur. That didn't change the fact that you're chayiv and chala with the smaller shiur, because just because they're changing measurements, that has no impact in the amount of dough required to take challah. So all that did is, if you take 43.2 eggs, which is 1/10 of an ephah, which is the shiur that in the midbar required challah, if we divide it by 1.2, meaning we're looking at it as if it's a fifth bigger, so let's do that. Let's do 43.2 divided by 1.2 is 36. That takes you to 36. It actually gets us to an even number. That means 36 eggs of the new larger eggs, the new larger measurement is equivalent to 43.2 eggs of the old measurement. Now let's look at it. Once I have 36 eggs, let's have a look at it. One lug is 6 eggs. 36 eggs will be 6 lug. 6 lug would be a kav and a half, because 4 lug is a kav. 6 lug is a kav and a half. So basically, if I take the measurements after they were increased, and I take a kav and a half, that would be the same volume as the 43.2 eggs were before they increased the size of the lug. And that's all to understand what the Chachamim say. So let's have a look at the four-way machloikis. There's a four-way machloikis as to how much dough you need to be able to take challah. So let's have a look. Shammai leimer mikav challah. Shammai says you only need 1 kav for challah. Now, that I'm not going to explain that yet. We'll get there in a second. Mikav challah. Vaykhel leimer mikavayim. You need to have 2 kavs in order to be chayiv in challah. V'chachamim leimrim loy k'divrei zeh v'loy k'divrei zeh ela kav u'mechza chayiv b'challah. So all I explained so far is where the Chachamim got the kav u'mechza from. It's a kav u'mechza of the new inflated sizes. So you really need more than the kav u'mechza if you're looking at the size of everything in the midbar. But once they inflated it, once everything was supersized, a kav u'mechza would meet the threshold required to take challah. And it's only the Chachamim who are giving these halachas over in these inflated sizes. Beishamai and Beisil, or Shammai and Hill, they're not talking about the inflated sizes. They're actually talking about the old sizes in the midbar. So we have a machloikis here where we have different shittas, and literally the different shittas are talking in different languages. Shammai and Hill are talking in the original shiur. The Chachamim, when they said kav u'mechza, they're talking about the new shiur. So it's a very difficult machlokes because they're not even on the same page. Shammai and Hill are talking about the old shiurim, and the Chachamim are talking about the new shiurim. So the Chachamim's shiur we understand already where it's kavu mechza. It's based on the new inflated sizes. Shammai and Hill, their machlokes is dependent upon something else. They hold that when we say asir sha'efa, a tenth of an ephah, they don't say a tenth means you divide it by 10. Like 432, we divided by 10, we got 43.2. That's not how it works. They hold you divide 43.2 by 9, and then you add a piece to it, which really means it's 1/9. So 1/9 of 432. So if we take 432 divided by 9, we get 48. We get 48 eggs. 48 eggs is how many lug? 48 eggs. Let's think about this. 24 eggs is a calf. 48 eggs would be 2 calves, and that's where Beis Shammai got his halacha from. That's where Beis Hillel got his halacha from, that you need 2 calves, because he is not learning that it's 1/10. He learns that it's 1/9, which is a weird way of taking a fraction when you're looking at a tenth, but that's how they looked at it. So that's why Hill says you needed to have 2 calves. And Shammai says even 1 calf is enough, because Shammai learned that the shiur of asir sa'efa, of dough that was given to the Jews, that was to serve as 2 meals, which means 1 meal would be half of that, and therefore a dough for 1 meal would consist of a kav, and a kav alone would be enough to trigger a chiyuv challah. And then the last shita was, so let's see it inside again. Amar Huna, begin with Shammai B'Hillel. Shammai got me kav challah. 1 kav will be mechayiv you to take challah. The Hillel me kavayim. 2 kavs mandate challah. The Chamar Melekah Devirzeh Melekah Ala kavu mechza chayiv challah. It's the kavu mechza of the inflated sizes, and then mishegdila midos. Even after the sizes were inflated, they were once again at a later date again inflated. Rashi tells us in Sipari they were inflated again, which now again reduces everything by 1/5, and therefore amu chameshes revoyim. So the Chum say it was kavu mechza, which is 6 lugs, but once the sizes became inflated, that 6 lug becomes now 5 lug. Chameshes revoyim kemach b'yavim b'challah. And Rabbi Yossi said, "Hey Peturin, hey v'oit chayavim." 5 revoyim, exactly 5 lug of dough, that would not quite be chayiv. You need to have a little more, because our eggs, he says, nowadays are a little smaller. So if we're basing all of our measurements on today's eggs, we're actually not going to meet the threshold that's mechayiv you and challah. Therefore, you have to have an extra 5%. So even if you have 5 revoyim of the latest shiur, the most inflated shiur, you have to add 5% of that in order to hit the threshold. Oops. Okay. I'm sorry that I didn't admit something quickly enough. I was looking down. Okay, so that's the first machlokes between Shammai and Hill. That's the first of the 3 that the Gemara records. The idach. Now we can move on to the next machlokes. The idach. Hillel Omer Malahin Mayim She'uvim Paistim Samikva. Motzei knows this well. The halacha is, if you don't have arbaim saw, if you don't have a full 40 saw of the proper rainwater for a mikvah, and a certain amount of she'uvim fall in, it will passel the whole mikvah. Once you have a full 40 saw, no matter how much mayim she'uvim you pour into the mikvah, it won't impact it. But if you don't have the 40 saw yet, and mayim she'uvim falls in, it will ruin the whole mikvah, and you have to start all over again. So the question is, how much water, how much mayim she'uvim has to fall into a mikveh that does not yet have 40 saw in order to passel the mikveh? So we have here a machlokes. The machlokes is as follows: Hil Amir Molay Hin Mayim Shuvim, a hinful. A hin, Rashi tells us, is 12 lug. So 12 lug of water of shuvim that fell in to a mikveh that did not yet have 40 saw, it would passel it. Postelness a mikveh. Now hin is a weird word to use, because it should say 12 lug. 12 log, which is the measurements we're used to. Hin is a biblical measurement that we don't really use anymore. So why did Hillel express?
I got it. Why did
Hillel express the shear in an old ancient measurement, it's because because Hillel wanted to quote exactly the wording that he heard from his Rebbe, and his Rebbe was Shmai Naftalion, and when Shmai Naftalion said halacha, they expressed halacha using the word hin. Now the reason why they use the word hin, the ArtScroll tells us, is because since a hin was a choshev, a measurement in the Torah, that's the amount of water, that's a significant amount of water that would pass on. Okay, Shammai Omer, it's Tisha Kavin. It's not 12 lug, it's 9 kavin. 9 kavin.
Yossi, just 1 second. I'm going to remind everybody who joins to please put the phone on mute until you have a question. Okay, if you could just mind whether you're calling in or videoing in to put the phone on mute because it interrupts the signal. If you don't know how to do it, ask me offline. Thanks.
So 12 lugin, which is a hin, is the shear that Hillel said. Shammai said it's Tisha Kavin, which is actually 36 lugin. So instead of 12 lugin, which was Hillel, which is a big chumrah, a small amount of water will pass through the mikveh, Shammai's mekel. And Shammai says until 36 lugin fall in, it won't pass. Ad shabo beis gardim ishar ashba. 2 weavers came, and where did they live? In what neighborhood did they live? They lived in the city of David, right below the Shire Ashba. That's like right where the city of David is today, Shiur Shalim. And Rashi says the reason why it tells us what they did for a living and where they lived is because they were on the lowest rung of society. Weavers were considered a low type of malacha. And the neighborhood right below the Kaisel, right below the Shire Ashba, right below the Dung Gate, that neighborhood is considered a very bad neighborhood. So these are people who are on the lower end of society, yet the Mishnah wants to tell us that no matter what the Yid is and where he's from, he's trusted completely as an aid. And what did they tell us? They told us, they said over something that they saw by Shmai Naftalion, 3 lugin of mayim shuvim will pass al mikveh, which is way less than everybody. That's a very big chomer. Even though Hillel said over from Shmaya and Naftalion, it apparently the ArtScroll tells us that their testimony was post this time where Hillel heard it from. So they were trying to say that you might have heard this from Shmaya and Naftalion, you might have heard a hymn from Shmaya and Naftalion, but they definitely changed their mind because later on we can say testimony that they passed the mikvahs even if a mere 3 lugin fell in. The Kaimu Chacham Mestavreim, and everybody accepted the testimony of these 2 weavers. So that's the second case where there was a machlokes Shammai and Hillel. The Eiduch in the third case was a Gemara that we're familiar with from Nida. Shammai Omer Kol Hanoshim Dayan Shaitim. A woman is tar and she sees Nida. Now do we need to worry if she sees now that she has dam? We don't know exactly when it came. We know she found it now. Maybe she was tummy even before, and maybe something that she touched earlier, she made tummy because she might have already seen Nida, but not yet detected it until later on. So Shammai says we're not worried about that. You only say that she's tummy from the moment that she detects the dam. So if she detects dam on Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock, and she was being Isaac in Kachim, she touched things the day before, all those things are tar, because we assume that the tumah came right when she saw it. The Hillel says no. If the last time she checked was a week ago, then everything she touched for the last week is going to be tummy, because we have no idea when she saw dam. She detected it now. It might have come earlier. So until you know she checked last, and you could verify that there was no dam, we'd have to backdate her tumah back to then. I feel young harbe. Even if she didn't check for a week, we assume anything she touched in the last week, she made tummy. You look at the lesser of the two. You look at the last time she checked, and you look at 24 hours. If she didn't check for the last week, we'll only backdate her tumah 24 hours. But if she checked in the last 12 hours, then you'll only backdate it to when she checked, not 24 hours. So basically, the most you'll ever backdate the tumah is 24 hours. But if she checked more recently than 24 hours, then you'll only backdate her tumah until the last time that she checked. So those are the three cases that we're recording where there was a machlokes Shammai and Hill, which is
Yossi, is the machlokes about the mikveh totally in the same machlokes as the challah? About like, do they agree at this point the size of a lug, or is the machlokes in what Shovim is going to puzzle the mikveh the same as in the case of the challah?
I don't understand why there would. I don't understand why there would be a connection between the challah and the mikveh. I'm not understanding the link at all that you suggested.
Because they're talking about volumes. They had a machlokes in the volumes of these measurements. In the case of challah, don't they have the same machlokes in the volume of the measurements by the mikveh?
Yeah, but one by challah, the machlokes is what is a sira sa'efa? What is the shiur of a sira sa'efa that the Jews considered a proper dough? Why would that have any impact on how much water would pass a mikveh?
Because I thought we had an argument even down to the size of a beya. Or do they agree the size of a beya?
There's no argument. There's no argument at all between the size of anything.
Okay.
The argument is merely what a sira sa'efa is.
Okay.
And you can express it using the original size eggs. You can express it using the Yerushalmi size eggs, or you can express it using the Tzipori size eggs. But whether or not you're referring to different size eggs, everybody agrees on the amount that we're talking about.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so to Hillel Gemara Vayter.
Yeah, but one second. You might agree on a sira sa'efa, but the actual volume may be larger. A sira sa'efa may end up being more, just like if it's a Canadian, you could say $1, but a Canadian dollar is not the same as a US dollar.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to say. If something costs $100 US, it doesn't matter if you're paying for it in US dollars, or if you're paying for it in Canadian dollars, or if you're paying for it in Israeli shekel. There's still a specific amount of value that everybody agrees it is.
So I guess the mikveh would be the same thing. You tell me our boim so would always be the same, but the reality is that in
Everybody
one
agrees what our saw is, and everybody agrees what his other things are. The question is how much. How much?
Right, but I'm going to go into a mikveh. I'm going to go into a mikveh somewhere where boim so is going to be much more than another place. Would it not?
No, that's not correct. Because the arbam saw that makes a mikveh a good mikveh is the arbam saw based on the original smallest amount.
And that's never changed.
That'll never change. Now, if you use a bigger saw, it might end up working out to 30 saw if the saw grows. But if the contemporary measurements change, that has no impact on halacha. That has no impact on how much water you need for a mikveh, just because contemporary measurements change. All we'll do is we'll adjust the amount required based on the contemporary measurements to meet the right shiur.
Yes, and therefore it will change, not the
But it won't change. It won't change the actual volume of water required for a mikveh.
Correct. But the actual amount of water will be different. It'll still be a bar sar, but just like we say in the Skat nu habeitzim, right? So therefore the actual water I'm going into is going to be less. We're still calling it 40 saw, but the amount is less.
I don't think that's correct. The amount of water required remains the same all the time. So you need 40 saw based on the original saw. Now, if now you consider a saw bigger, well then you don't need 40 saw. Then you need 30 saw. If today we made a saw bigger, so that what was originally 40 saw is today only 30 saw, then you only need 30 saw of today's water, which is equivalent to 40 saw of yesteryear's water. So we're not physically changing. The fact that the government changed measurements, changed currencies, has zero effect on what the chiyuv is. There's zero effect on what the halacha is. We just have to adjust. If we want to provide the measurements in contemporary measurements, we have to adjust it to meet the right sizes. The article tells us that most of the time in Shas, in order to avoid confusion, the the Gemara and the Mishnah always discuss anything based on the original shiurim in the midbar, because those are the original shiurim. This is an exception. This that the Chachamim in our case said that it's 6 kav, that was kav umechza, that it's 6 loy. That's an exception. And the only reason why they did it is because women wanted to have a shiur based on today's measurements, based on the measuring cups that they buy today. But really, all shiurim and all halachas stick to the original sizes that it was in the midbar. And the fact that currencies change or weights change doesn't change halach at all.
Okay, I'm missing something, but I'll go ahead. Okay, go weiter. We'll discuss it after.
Okay. So then we have a machlokes by Nida. Besides these 3 things, is there no other machlokes? We have another machlokes. Hillel Omer, Lismoich v'Shamai Omer Shaloi Lismoich. So this was a machlokes that carried down from generation to generation between the Ab Bezin and the Nasi, and the shaila was, do you make smicha on, Rashi said, do you make smicha on the Darim and the Davis that are brought on Yom Tov? So Hillel said you do make smicha, and Shammai said you don't make smicha. So you see there's another machlokes. So why does the Rashi say there's only 3 machlokes? In fact, we have a 4th one. So Gemara Kik Amar Afuna, when did Rav Huna say that there's 3 machlokes in Heicha Deleka Plutu de Rabbosa Ba'adayu? He's not talking about a machlokes that's been going on for generations that others had argued about the same topic before. He was talking about 3 machlokes in between Shammai and Hill that were exclusive to them. In fact, the Gemara Vayikar Aboitcher Lagas. So this goes back to the sugya of chiyutan. The sugya of chiyutan is in order for a Michael to be able to be makabel tumah al tumas Michael, it has to become wet with one of the shiva mashkin. So what if I have grapes and there's grape juice oozing out of those grapes? Will the grape juice that oozes out of the grapes be makshir those same grapes that they're oozing out of to be makabel tumah or not? So if the reason why I harvested the grapes is because I wanted the grapes, I wanted the fruit, well then I don't want them to ooze anything. So I'm unhappy that anything is oozing. I'm unhappy that anything is oozing out of them, and anything that oozes out of grapes that I'm harvesting to eat, that's not makshir them to be makabel tumah. But what if I'm harvesting these grapes because I plan on taking them to a wine press to press them? So those grapes, I do want the juice from them, but I don't want the juice that falls out on the basket, because as I'm taking this basket of grapes to the press, anything that oozes out is actually going to fall on the floor and get ruined. So I don't really want it. So I do want the juice, but I don't really want it to come out now. So that's where there's a machlokes if that juice is going to be makshir these grapes to be makabel tumah. So Shammai says hukshar. And the reason why Shammai says that juice that comes out is mukshar is because technically if a person wanted to really salvage and save all the juice, he could have not used a basket, but he could have used a bucket to carry the grapes in. And if he carried the grapes in a bucket from the vine to the press, then all of the juice that would come out of those grapes he would contain. And that's proper juice, and that would be mashur. So Shammai says, even though you're in a basket and everything's going to run out, we're geyser just in case you're going to use a bucket, and then surely that wine will be mashur the grapes to be makabel tumah. Even if it's in a basket and it's dripping out, that little juice that's on the grapes will also be mashur them makabel tumah. The Hillel Aimer loy hukshar, and the Hillel holds no. Right now you're in a basket. Any juice that comes out is going to fall down to the floor, and you're not going to have it. And that's not called a mashke. That's mashur the grapes makabel tumah. So here you have another example of a machlokes Shammai and Hill that's exclusive Shammai and Hill. So why isn't that listed off as one of the machlokes? So if more barminei that's not a good example. The hatam kashazak leHillel Shammai. There Hillel right away agreed to Shammai. As soon as Shammai argued on Hill sort of accepted it. So that's not really a machlokes because it didn't last past the first volley of discussion. Yosef ben Yosef is trader. The Yosef ben Yochanan is Yerushalayim.
Yossi. Question. These are all the machlokes between Hill and Shammai. I'm confused. Are there many machlokes through?
I think that's Beis Shammai and Beis Hill argued in many cases. But Shammai themselves
oh.
only had 3 machlokas.
I got it. Thank you for explaining.
I had the same problem. You know, wherever we learned those machlokas b'Shammai b'Sol.
Right.
Pei Shammai.
Okay, based on what?
It's like
Okay.
the Satmar Rebbe and the Lubavitcher Rebbe never fought. The Hasidim fight.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, sagt die Gemara weiter. Yossi ben Yezer is trader of Yossi ben Yechon Ish Yerushalayim Gozru Tuma al Eretz Amim. They said that the land, Goyish land, so if someone walks through Chutz La'aretz, he's automatically tummy. When he comes back to Yisrael, he has to go into quarantine and he has to get spritzed with the paraduma water. V'achleis Chuchis, they also were Goyizer Tuma to Kleis Chuchis. That means there's nowhere in the Torah where it mentions anything about a glass keli becoming tamei. So they were gozer that a glass keli can become tamei, and the Gemara is going to discuss the details of these things now. Correct the Gemara. How could you tell me that it's Yosef ben Yeru's trader and it's Yosef ben Yeru's Yerushalayim? They were the ones who were gozer tuma al eretz ha'amim, v'Rabbanan the Shmonim shana gozer. The Rabbanan that lived 80 years before the Churban Bayis Sheni, it's those Rabbanan that made this Gzeira al Eretz Ha'amim, not Yosef ben Yezer, not Yosef ben Yochanan. The Amar of Kahana, Kishachala Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi, when Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi got ill, Sholchu Loi, they sent to him, Rebbe, Emar Lanu, Beis v'Gimel Devarim, Shomart Alonu Mishum Avicha. Please remind us, tell us over some halachas from your father that are of historical significance. Shalach lahem, he sent back to them, Kach Omer Abba, this is what my father told me. Kuf Pei Shana, actually Chorba Bayis, 180 years before the Churban Bayis Sheni, Pashta Malchus or Shah al Yisrael. The Mad Malchus already took over Klal Yisrael. We were already subservient to them. And it was starting already not to be so good. 100 years later, Pei Shana, actually Chorba Bayis, 80 years before Churban Bayis, Gozru, Tuma, al Eretz Ha'amim, that's when the Rabbanan made a Gzeira that if you go into Chutz La'aretz, if you're in Eretz Ha'amim, you become Tamei. The Al Kleis Chuchis, and they were also Gozer on Kleis Chuchis. Mem Shana actually Churban Bayis, 40 years before Churban Bayis, Gol Salah Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin were exiled from sitting in the Beis HaMikdash itself. The Yoshvula b'Chanuyos. They sat in another area on Har Bayis that was called Chanuyos. Lamai Hilchasa. What's the difference where the Sanhedrin sat? Omer B'Tzach Bar Abdimai Loimar. The fact that they were not in their place in the Lishkos HaGazos, it teaches us Shalaydonu Dinei Knossos. They were no longer able to paskin Dinei Knossos, such as the Chiyuv Kefo, such as the Chiyuv Koifer, or other knossos, or the knas of the Onyus and Mafata. There's many different knossos, so they weren't dining Dini Knossos anymore. Why would you say that just because they were no longer in the Lishkos of Gazes, that they couldn't pass on Dini Knossos? You could pass on Dini Knossos. You don't have to be in the Lishkos of Gazes. Ella Amos Shvaidanu Dini Nefashos. All that changed when they left Lishkos of Gazes and they moved to Chanuyos, where they could no longer paskin on Dini Nefashos anymore. So now we have a problem. Because how could you say that it was Yosef ben Yeru's trader? And Yosef ben Yeru's Yerushalayim, how could you say that they were the ones who made the Gzeira al Eretz Ha'amim? We see here that 80 years before the Churban Bayis, that's when they were Gozer al Eretz Ha'amim. The Chitema, and if you want to say the Pei Shana Nami Inu Have, if you want to say, sure, Yosef ben Yezer and Yosef ben Yochanan, they were those rabbis. They were the ones 80 years before the Churban Bayis who made that Gzeira. So in fact, these two brachos fit perfectly together. It was Yosef ben Yezer and it was Yosef ben Yochanan, and they happened to have lived 80 years before Churban Bayis. Zaktamar, we know that's not true. They lived long before 80 years before Churban Bayis. Because Vatanya, Hillel, the Shimon, Gamliel, the Shimon, the Hagen and Susan, they were in power. They ran their malchus. Lefnei Bayis Mea Shana. They were in power 100 years before Churban Bayis. Liluy Yosef ben Yezer's trader, Yosef ben Yochanan have a kadmatuva. We know that Yosef ben Yezer and Yosef ben Yochanan were much, much earlier than Hillel and Shimon, Gamliel and Shimon. And Hillel was 100 years before. So they were long before 100 years before. So you can't say that they were the same Rabbanim who made the Gzeira 80 years before the Churban, because they were in power much, much before that. So now we have two things going on. We have, let's say, 150 years before the Churban. We have Yosef ben Yezer and Yosef ben Yochanan enacting the Gzeira of Tumah L'Eretz Amim. And you also have Rabbanim who made the same Gzeira 80 years before Churban. So there's two Gzeiras here. Why do you need both of them? Also, Inu. Let's say that Yosef ben Yezer and Yosef ben Yochanan, who were much, much earlier, they made the following Gzeira. Also, Inu Gozer Agusha Lisroi. They were Gozer that if Truma touches earth, if Truma touches a clump of earth from Chutz La'aretz, that Truma has to be burnt. The Avira, but if Truma was merely in the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, like Klum, it wouldn't be Tamei at all. Well, also Rabbanim the Peishana, and then later on, the Rabbanim that were paskening 80 years before Churban Bayis Sheni, they added to the Gzeira, and they were Gozer Avira Litlois, and they said anything that's in the airspace is also going to be Tumah Misofik. In fact, Gemara Lememra, the Chadik Zer Tahavel Asrefa. Now you want to say that Yosef ben Yezer, the original Gzeira of if Truma touches a piece of earth, a clump of earth in Chutz La'aretz, right away it had to be burnt. The original Gzeira was that it had to be burnt. It wasn't made in stages. Well, Amar Ilfa told us, Yadayim Chilas Gzeirasan L'Sreifa. It's only Tumas HaYadayim where they made a drastic Gzeira right away. They made a halacha that all hands have to be washed before you can touch Truma. And if you touch Truma without washing your hands, that Truma becomes puzzle and you have to burn it. That's the only Gzeira that they made right out of the gate, that you have to burn something because of this Gzeira D'Rabbanan D'Ketuma. But every other Tumah that they were Gozer, such as Eretz Amim, that Gzeira, when it was originally made, was only made litlois, not lisroi. So how could you claim that Yosef ben Yezer's original Gzeira was that if Truma would touch a piece of earth from Chutz La'aretz, it would have to be burned? There was only one Gzeira made when it was originally enacted that would cause Truma to have to be burned, and that was the Gzeira of Yadayim. So therefore, you have to change what you said. And therefore, Yadayim would have Chilas Gzeras Nasreifo. No other Gzeira of Tumah that Chazal made would have mandated right when the Gzeira was made to burn the Truma. So what you have to say is the original Gzeira that Yosef ben Yezer and Yosef ben Yochanan made was if Truma touches a piece of earth from Chutz La'aretz, you can't use that Truma anymore. That Truma is puzzle, but you don't have to burn it. The Avir of Alei Klum. But if Truma was in the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, it's completely tahar, and there's no problem, and you can eat that Truma. But also Rabbanim the Peishana, and then the next generation of Rabbanim who lived 80 years before the Churban, Gazer Agushalis, right? They upped the Gzeira, and they said we're no longer going to say that you're toiling the Truma does not get burnt, but you're not allowed to use it. You don't just say that. Rather, we're going to say you should burn the Truma if it touched a piece of earth, a clump of earth from Chutz La'aretz. So now it's consistent with what we said, because the original Gzeira made by Yosef ben Yezer was only that the Truma cannot be eaten, but it's not burnt. And then the Rabbanan of Peishana upped that Gzeira and said you should even burn that Truma. But the Avira Litlois, and they also added a Gzeira on Truma that went into the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, and they said that you can no longer eat that Truma, although you don't burn it. In fact, the Gemara, but there's another place where they also were Gozer about Eretz Amim. Makati be'usha Gozer. In Usha, which was way later after Churban Bayis, there was also a Gzeira made regarding Tumah of Chutz La'aretz. Ditnan, we learned, Alvov Svekis Sorfin es a Truma. There are 6 situations that would be a suffix that Chazal, that the Rabbanim and Usha were Gozer, you have to burn Truma for. Al Sofik Beis HaPras, if you walk through a Beis HaPras is a field that a caver was lost in or a caver was plowed in. So we're kosher anywhere in this field, there might be a caver there. So that's a suffix. Even if you walk through it, there's a suffix that you might be tamei or not. So that they made a gzeira on such a situation. the al sofik over haba min eretz amin, which is what we're talking about, our case. So if you have a clump of earth that came from Chutz La'aretz, again, that's a sofik. We don't know for sure that there's a mace, there's a bone inside this clump of earth, but it's a sofik. But they said that if it touches truma, it's going to be tamei. Now, sofik big day amaretz, the beged of an amaretz, we don't know for sure that it's tamei, but it might be tamei. So they made a gzer that if it touches truma, it will cause it. You have to burn the truma. If you just find a keli lying around, you have no idea if the keli is tamei or not, and it touched truma. There is a gzer there as well. What if you find saliva on the floor? It could be the saliva of a zov, but it could be the saliva of a Torah person, and truma touches it. Or what if you saw meiraglayim, and you have, let's say you have two puddles of meiraglayim. One you know for sure came from a behemoth. The other one you're not sure. Usually, if there's two puddles together, it probably came from a behemoth too. But nevertheless, we're not sure. So we're also glazer on that meiraglayim that it could be the meiraglayim of a zov, and will also be metamim misavik. So al vadei nagon, if for sure truma touched it, but sabak tamasim, but we don't know whether these things are tamei. So if you go through all of these things, it's for sure a case. It's for sure a case where the truma was in the base of pras. We just don't know if there's truma there. Or sabak offer abam me'er ta'amim. For sure the truma touched this clump of earth. We just don't know if this clump of earth is tamei or not. Sabak big amaretz. Again, it's for sure the truma for sure touched the big amaretz, but the big amaretz themselves, we don't know if it's really tamei or not. So all these cases, sorry for nesa truma. In Usha they made it akana, you burn truma for it. Rabbi Yossi says, "Ap al sofak magon," which is a yachad sarfin. Rabbi Yossi holds even if we don't even know if it touched. The Tanakama says if you know for sure that the truma touched this clump of earth, that in itself is a sofak because we don't know if the earth is tamei, and that's where you say sarfin. Rabbi Yossi says even if you're not even sure if this truma touched a piece of earth, it's a sofak whether or not this truma touched a piece of earth. You're also going to be makbid, and if it's in Rishus HaYachid, you're also going to burn the truma for it. If it was in Rishus HaYachid, we would say it's a sofik truma, and we won't burn it. If it was in Rishus HaRabim, and we're not sure if it touched it or not, it would be tar. But avada, if it's not touched it, it's sarfin.
Sorry, Yossi.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I just having trouble understanding why is a Rishus HaYachid better than a Rishus HaRabim? I mean, I would think the opposite.
The Rishus HaYachid is more tamei.
Is more tamei?
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Because there's
Rishus HaRabim is more people. I would think for sure it's more.
Very, very good question. It's a very good question. There's a famous rule that we learned out of Saita. So, from Saita, we learned that Sofik Tamei, Rishus HaYachid, Sveikoi Tamei, and Sofik Tamei, Rishus HaRabim, Sveikoi Tar. By Saita, there was a Sofik Tamei. We don't know if this lady became Tamei or not. And it occurred, of course, in private. The stira, when this woman locked herself up with this man, it was done in private. That's Rishus HaYachid. So we learn from there that whenever there's a suffix that occurs, whenever there's a suffix tuma that occurs in Rishus HaYachid, we're going to be more machmer, and we'll say that it's tamei. But if that, and we're medai from there. But if a suffix tuma occurs in Rishus HaRabim, we're generally makel.
That's completely different. You're talking about intimacy between people as opposed to an object.
But we do learn from there. People,
as opposed to one person in a Rishus HaYachid or a few people in Rishus HaYachid.
It's not logic.
Uh-huh.
Because we're learning from Soita to a suffix if a mouse touches something. If you have a suffix in Rishus HaYachid, if a mouse touches something or not, you learn from Soita that you say the mouse touched it. It has nothing to do with the intimacy, and it's not even the same type of tumah. But it's a limud that the Gemara learns.
Okay.
I don't know that there's logic behind it.
Okay.
Because like what you said, it's more mistaber in Rishus HaRabim, it would
right.
come into contact with something that was tummy. But these are all Xeris Akosovs, I think.
Okay.
And it's nothing to do, I know it's a bit of a stretch to say that it has something to do with Tuma Hutra B'Tzibur, right?
No, I don't think that's relevant, because that's just saying that we're mater avoid in the base of Mikdash, B'Tzibur.
Because Tuma, with it's many people involved, what happens? You tell me Rishus HaRabim doesn't have a grave somewhere? Of course it does. But if we were makbid to be able to say that people wouldn't be able to live, they couldn't go outside. Look what happens when there's tumah outside, you restrict people. That's, I think, the issue.
The issue of what? I'm not sure what you're driving at.
No, the issue is if you put Rishus Harabim and you make it Tameh, what are you going to, there's no end. The suffix is going to be constant. How would be, it's a Gzera that people can live with.
Back. Suffix Tameh Rishus Harabim means I had a piece of truma sitting on the floor of Rishus Harabim, and I saw a mouse in the neighborhood. And I don't know if this dead mouse, did it touch the truma or not? I don't know. I'm not sure if it touched it or not. So in Rishus Harabim, we'll paskin that the dead mouse did not touch the truma. But if that same thing occurred in Rishus HaYachid, we'll say probably the dead mouse did touch the truma. So we're not saying everywhere in Rishus Harabim is tummy. We're saying if a situation occurs where there's a doubt as to whether or not something came in contact with tumah, if this question arises in Rishus HaYachid, we'll assume with Chumrah that it did come in contact with the tumah. And if the same scenario occurred in Rishus Harabim, we'll say that the object did not come in contact with the tumah. There's no logical reason to say in Rishus HaYachid it's more likely that it came in contact with the tumah than it is in Rishus Harabim. It's strictly a Gzeras HaKosov. Right? There's no reason. Okay, shkoyach. Okay, so let's see what we have here. So the Gemara's problem now is we have the same Gzera that's dealt with 3 times. The Yoshis dealt with it about 150 years before the Churban. Then the Rabbanim 80 years before the Churban dealt with it. And now we see that in Usha they made that takana. Right? These 6 Vaykhels, amongst them is a clump of earth from Chutz La'aretz that it has a din tumah that was made in Usha. So how do you fit that in? Ella, we're going to have to set up the evolution and the development of this Gzera differently. Ella also inu, let's say the Gzera started with the 2 Yoshis. And how did it start? Gazer Agusha Litlois. They said that if Truma touches a clump of earth in Chutz La'aretz, we cannot eat that Truma anymore, yet we won't burn it. Va'avira, if Truma was merely in the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, v'loy klum, that Truma is tahar, you're allowed to eat it. And then the Rabbanim that were around 80 years before the Churban came along and Gazer EDV Litlois. Then they said that not only if it touches a clump of earth does it disqualify the Truma, but even if Truma is in the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, it also becomes disqualified from eating it, but you don't burn it. Usha, and only years later, after the Churban Bayis in Usha, they added to the Takana and Gozer Agusha. This right? They said that if Truma comes into contact with a clump of earth from Chutz La'aretz, you actually have to burn it. But they left the Gzer as the Rabbanim from 80 years before the Churban, they left it as they found it, meaning that if Truma is in the airspace of Chutz La'aretz, it becomes disqualified, but it doesn't have to be burnt. All they changed was Truma that touches a clump of earth from Chutz La'aretz, that would have to be burnt. So that's sort of the evolution of the Gzera. It started off, the 2 Rabbi Yosi started off the Gzera only Litlois, only if it touches a clump of earth. 80 years before the Churban, they included airspace, also the Apostle Truma, again Litlois, and then after the Churban in Usha, they said that if it touches a clump of earth from Chutz La'aretz, it will need to be burned. I was struggling with this because I remember whenever you take a tour of Yerushalayim, the Shahar Rachamim, which is facing Har Hazeisim, the Arabs built a graveyard right outside of it. And they built it because they figured that Eliyahu Navi is a Kohen and he won't be able to come into Yerushalayim because it's brought down that when Mashiach comes, he's going to come Shushar Rachamim, and he won't be able to come because he's a Kohen and there's Arab bodies there. Did you ever hear that before? Anybody? That's what they said. The Arabs built a basic forest right outside of Shar Rachamim to prevent Eliyahu Navi from coming into Shar Rachamim, because legend is that that's where Eliyahu is going to come through. So the tour guys always say, they are stupid. They don't know that Goyim are not Matama. But it seems...
Simcha Hachman told us this.
Right, Simcha Hachman told us that, right? But it's not true. We're learning here in the Gemara that Goyim are Matama. The Goyim that are buried in Chutz La'aretz. There, the reason why the earth of Chutz La'aretz, there, Geyser, that it's possible Truma, is because it might be the bone of who? The bone of a goy, not the bone of a yid. So if you look up the Gemara in Yevamis, there's actually a big machlokes, and it seems like everybody is moida that a goy's body is matama b'magav b'masa. If you touch it, it's actually tamei. The shaila is if it's matama b'oil. So it could be we're not worried about them touching it. It could be the shaila of oil. So they're allowed to walk over it. They could build a sort of a platform to walk over the bodies as long as you don't touch the bones. So that's the machlokes. The machlokes is if it's matama b'oil or not. But Magu Masa, it seems like everybody holds that even the bones of Goyim are Matam B'Magu Masa. It means if you actually touch the bone of a Goy, you are Tomei. So I'm not sure. We'll have to challenge Simcha Hachbaum the next time he tells us something like that. If anybody takes a tour of Israel in the next couple of years, make sure to shoot him down if he says that Goyish bodies are not Matam. Because our Gemara says that it is. Zog to Gemara Vaykhel. Kalei Zechuchas. Now we're going to analyze glass kalim. Glass kalim, there was a gzeira that it also is susceptible to the halachos of tumah. Now we know there's two types of kalim. There's metal kalim. Metal kalim, the way they become tamei is if they touch tumah. Anywhere they touch tumah, they become tamei. How do they become tar? You could tovel them in the mikveh, or you can destroy them. Klicheres, if it touches tumah, it does not become tamei. The only way klicheres becomes tamei is if tumah is suspended in its airspace, in its walls. That's how klicheres becomes tamei, and that's how klicheres makes things tamei. Again, if a sheretz is suspended into the opening of a kois, that kois becomes tamei. If then I put a piece of food in the klicheres, so it's in the airspace of the klicheres will make the food tamei, not because it touched it, only because it's in the airspace. So the klicheres becomes tamei in a different fashion than the metal keli. Now, klicheres you cannot tovel in the mikveh to make tar. The only way to make the klicheres tar is to break it. If it's smashed into pieces, then it becomes tar. So let's see what the Gemara says. The Gemara says that klichuchas they said will become tamei, but we need to know what is it. Is its tumah going to be similar to that of a klicheres, or is its tumah going to be similar to that of a metal keli? So let's see what the Gemara says. Why did they say that klis chuchas should be tamei? Since glass ultimately comes from sand, the Rabbanan said that glass would have the halacha of a klicheres. So that's the case of Gemara. Once you're saying that the gzeir of the Rabbanan was to make a klis chuchas like a klicheres, that means you can't toivel it in the mikveh. We know the only way to be matar klicheres is to smash it. But the Brisa says otherwise. Alomatnan, why did we learn in the Brisa? The elu choytitzin b'chelim. The following items create a chatzitza. So if you toivel with these things on it, it's not a good tefillah because there's a chatzitza. The elu choytitzin b'chelim has zefes v'amor, which are tar, some thick, sticky component, the klis chuchas. So klis chuchas is normally very smooth. Anything that's on it, if it's dirt, it could wash right off. So tit, Rashi tells us, like dirt would not be considered a chatzitza because it washes right off. But sticky tar, even on glass, adheres very well, and therefore it makes a chatzitza. Now, the fact that the Brisa is discussing chatzitza by glass, obviously the Brisa assumes that you could toivel the glass to be matarit, because if you can't toivel it, what is irrelevant whether or not there's a chatzitza or not? So you see clearly you can toivel it. So how could you tell me that they made klis chuchas to have the same status as a klicheres? The Brisa seems to say that you could toivel it. You had a klicheres that was tamei, and it broke. How did it break? It got a hole. If there's a hole in the klicheres and it no longer could function as it's supposed to, it's tar. So now you have a klicheres with a hole in it that's not a keli, so it's tar. And what did I do? I wanted to repair the keli. So how do I repair the keli? I melted lead into the hole and I filled it. It's like a filler. It's literally like a filling in a tooth. You melt some lead into that hole and now you have a good keli. Now, when you melt the lead into the hole, now really that lead is what's making the whole keli. Because without that lead, this keli is useless. What is lead? Lead is metal. So now, even though technically it looked like a chlicheres, but since what really is giving it its integrity is the lead that plugged the hole, we give it now a status of a metal keli. So that's what the Gemara wants to say. We have something that started off as a klicheres, but after it had a hole and you filled it with lead, now we give it the status of a metal keli. Reb Meir Hida Amar Akoil Holich Achar Amayim. Everything follows what is actually making the keli retain its status of keli, and it's allowing it to contain the liquid. So since it's that little piece of lead, that plug, that makes the whole keli, that makes the keli something that could contain liquid, the whole keli now has a status of a metal keli. Titania, kleis chuchish and nikvu, a glass keli that had a hole in it, the hit of l'soichen aver, and you dripped some lead into it. Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Reb Meir metame, Reb Meir holds its tame, v'chacham metayred, and the chum holds its tam. So we're paskening that this glass, this glass, the reason why you could toivel it is because right now, since it's filled with a little bit of aver, it no longer has the status of a klicheres. Rather, it has the status of a kli aver. It's like a lead keli, and that is, you're able to toivel that, and therefore it's relevant to know if there's a chatzitza on it, if the tefillah is good. Okay, I guess we'll stop here and we'll pick up tomorrow at 8.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
What time is Nate's?
Shkoyach. I think Nate's around 7.
Shkoyach, Yossi.
Shkoyach, thank you.
Yossi, thanks a million.
Thank you.
Akiva, this Shabbos, Akiva became Rebbe Akiva.
Oh.
Mazel tov, Chaim Tzvi, Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, Chaim Tzvi. Mazel tov.
Thank you, everybody. Akiva, you have to adjust your camera so I see your face rather than the Gedolim pictures.
Yossi, can you post on the WhatsApp the calculations?
Thank you, everybody.
Akiva already did.
Okay. Oh, I didn't look.
Well, just the
numbers, just the letters.
The code.
I think
letters.
You're
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Right,
Yossi, you have to add the numbers to that.
Okay,
and maybe write out what the Rosh Hashanahs are.
Okay, I'll write it out and I'll take a picture of it and I'll put it back on.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
What time is Nate's tomorrow? Anybody?
I think it's around 7:15.
I'll post it. I'll find it. David Lighton was offered to do it on a daily basis to offer what time Nate's is. Do you want it with seconds or without? I think it's about 7:16. It's about 7:16, but I'll post it.
Okay.
8 o'clock it is?
8
yeah, 8 o'clock tomorrow.
Back here?
Thank you very, very much.
Back here. Thank you. Yossi, I'm going to speak to you afterwards. I want to upload the shiur. So I don't know if Dave Zolty tuned in or not.
I don't think he did.
He didn't. Unless he called in. It's possible he called in. I saw one number called in. But we'll have to post it into either YouTube or send the link out.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
Right.
Yossi, you look great on camera. You're ready for political office. The liberals are worried. All right, shkoyach.